What is up everyone, it's Saber here and welcome to another Naruto What If. If you end up liking the video, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can take it back at any time and it really helps me out, and this is my second channel, so if you want some more what ifs, go check out my other channels. And with all of the YouTube formalities out of the way, let's get into it. Neji and Boruto sat together in Boruto's apartment waiting for Himawari to finish getting ready for training. So how's training going with Himawari? Boruto asked Neji. It's going well. Unlike Boruto, who leaned forward in his chair, Neji's posture was always straight. She's progressing quickly. Whatever you do, just try not to piss her off, Boruto warned him as I glancing in the direction of Himawari's bedroom. What do you mean? Boruto shivered, his shoulders tensing. When Hima gets really angry, she blacks out and becomes super strong. The first time it happened, she knocked that out for an entire day, Boruto explained. I still don't see the problem. Neji frowned. Himawari was his sweet little niece. If Naruto annoyed her enough to get knocked out, he probably deserved it. She was 3. Himawari had awakened the Byakugan when she was 3. That had rarely happened in the Hyuga clan. Yup, so just make sure you won't anger her and she decides it's bye-bye. Neji niece, and Boruto shuddered from that moment on. Neji promised himself he'd never anger Himawari. Locked on. Damn it, Neji watched helplessly. He couldn't move, couldn't help his niece. Himawari leaped onto the Akatsuki member at a speed Neji had never seen her use. She struck with her palm and the man blocked her with his sword, but it didn't help. The force she put into her palm still pushed him back several feet. Himawari didn't stop there. She moved her arm back before pushing forward again, releasing an air palm, the gust of wind strong enough to make waves in the water. It was almost like she was a completely different person. She disappeared and reappeared behind the man, kicking at his head. He swung his sword at her, pushing her up into the air. She flew up, but then changed her trajectory and started heading down head first. She pushed her hand again, creating another gust. However, the man cut through that with his blade, swatting Himawari to the side. She landed on her side, but got up, not even noticing the bruises quickly forming on her cheek or the slight tear in her hoodie. Neji could barely hold his breath, and yet he willed himself to hold on. He should be out there with Himawari, and when he got out, he'd bring down hell on the Akatsuki member with the blue skin for bruising his niece. Boruto blinked, faltering in his step and almost missing the branch. Sarada glanced at him. Is everything okay? I don't know. Boruto sped up. I just have a bad feeling. Guy watched the young girl attack the Akatsuki member head on and actually doing some damage. As a taijutsu user himself, he was rather impressed. She had the Byakugan that he was certain of now, but how she got it or why didn't matter. He needed to rescue his team, and if her having those eyes could help, so be it. After being thrown to the side, she quickly recovered and moved to stand next to him. At least she recognized him as an ally, because he wasn't sure how much else she recognized. It seems almost like she blacked out, seeing nothing but the target in front of her. This is the mighty blade known as Samahata. The Akatsuki man held his blade for Guy to see, and it only allows me to use it. Guy remembered the spikes that pierced his hands earlier when he tried to attack the man with the sword, I guess, so he said I shouldn't have messed with an unfamiliar weapon. He opened his pouch and took out his nunchaku. I'll just stick to my own then. He created a gust of wind with his weapon, moving the water. The man smiled widely. Well, this is going to be interesting. He raised his sword next to Guy. Himawari got into a position he recognized from all the times he saw Neji do it. She was ready to strike. The man pushed himself forward and ran towards them. Now what do you say we get down to business? He yelled with a sadistic smile. Guy and the shark man immediately engaged in a battle, with Guy cutting down all of the water jutsu thrown at him. The man had smartly incapacitated Himawari by having her constantly fight off waves coming her way. She broke them down as soon as they appeared, but it was clear they were annoying her. While Guy hit the sword with his nunchaku, creating an explosion in the water from the force. He gritted his teeth in frustration, seeing as it didn't make the man move one bit. Bringing his leg up, he tried to aim a kick at his head, only for the man to simply crouch down and avoid it. Guy used the momentum to turn around and kick again with his other foot, only to be blocked by the sword again. Not too far from him, Himawari was swallowed by a wave. Resurfacing again, coughing Himawari, he shouted. She stood up on the water with her hands in the same position as before. Without uttering a single word, she waited for the next wave to arrive and began spinning around so quickly she created a shield of chakra to repel the water, sending them back towards the clones, who held their teammates captive. Unfortunately, the wave died down before it reached the clones, but it was away long enough for her to move closer to the shark man. The Akatsuki member used Guy's distraction against him. You should really look at your opponent, he yelled as he struck Guy away with his weapon. Himawari arrived just in time to duck under the blade and try to hit the man in the gut, only for him to kick her in the stomach. She and Guy flew back and Himawari coughed up some blood but raised her head back as if it didn't matter. Getting into position again, she's acting purely out of instinct. Guy realized she doesn't even feel the pain due to the adrenaline. Guy attacked the man again, trying to nail his head. The man avoided it, and the punch Guy sent after it. Guy moved back and tried to gain some distance by using his nunchaku, but the man avoided them swiftly. Guy abandoned that move and instead tried to kick the man in the face, only to stop mere inches from the sword the shark man used to block him due to spikes growing out of it. The man chuckled, maniacally laughing at Guy's tension. Himawari suddenly appeared above Guy, her hand ready to strike. She shouted, but before she could strike, the man turned the tip of his sword to block her. She reacted quickly and landed her feet on the tip of the blade momentarily before pushing herself away. A second before the spikes appeared again, she gave Guy just enough time to jump back as well. Guy started running in parallel with the Akatsuki member, spinning his nunchaku at high speed. He didn't break eye contact with his opponent for a second, knowing it could mean his defeat. The one downside to working with Himawari right now is that she is unpredictable, he thought to himself, seeing as the girl hasn't moved yet from the spot she landed in. After distancing herself from the Akatsuki member earlier, she entered that state of disconnection from the world around her right after their team has been trapped, or right after Niji was trapped. Guy remembered how she called out Niji's name in concern, so that was it. Behind him a water clone manifested, but he broke it with his nunchaku without looking. He didn't have time for tricks. His students were suffocating, attacking the shark man. He swiped his nunchaku at him and then crouched down when the man swung his blade horizontally, jumping up just as the man brought his blade back. Guy blocked the swing with a hit from his nunchaku, immediately ducking afterwards so as not to get hit by the blade. He jumped back and started to swing his weapon again, preparing for the next round. They both moved at once, creating waves from the force and speed they displayed. They met in the middle, striking each other's weapons before meeting in the middle and striking again. Himawari stood still not far from them, her face blank. Her hand was located on her stomach, a soft green light emitting from it. Medical jutsu. Guy thought between strikes she can't move because her body was in pain. He realized 10-10 is fading. Guy noticed he knew he didn't have much time before they'd all start to feel the fire in their lungs and were not able to hold their breaths any longer. The Akatsuki member threw his sword in the air, making quick hand seals and touching the water surface. Water style water shark bomb jutsu. A water shark emerged from the large swarm of water, being him, flying directly to Guy with his jaws open, revealing its many teeth. Just as it was about to hit him, Guy felt himself being pushed away several feet, the bomb going off just as he landed a couple of meters away. He looked up to see Himawari standing there panting. She had pushed him away from the explosion. The sword landed in the man's hand and he charged at Himawari, striking at her head. She swiped her palm up, quickly blocking his blade, but not the shockwave created by the force of his attack. Disoriented from the strike, she was not prepared for the kick he directed at her ribcage, sending her into the water a few feet away. She resurfaced, raising to her feet with the endurance of a true fighter, and got into her position once again. Guy couldn't imagine how much damage her body was suffering from those strikes. The man then turned to Guy, jumping above him and lifting his sword above his head, swinging it at him. Guy caught the blade with the chain of the nunchaku, struggling to hold it back. Such incredible power, Guy thought in amazement. Then something in his head clicked. Hold on, I know you. So you finally remembered. Huh? The man raised his fist too little too late. He punched Guy in the face, pushing him into the water. Guy sunk down, reaching the bottom. He noticed the man had wounded him and internally groaned, I know I've met this guy before. Feeling a disturbance in the water, he looked up to see 5 water sharks making their way to him. Quickly he pushed himself off the bottom just as the first shark attacked, crashing into the boulder instead and breaking it into pieces in the process, missing Guy. The second shark was luckier, rushing Guy so quickly that the force the move pushed Guy backwards. The third shark had grabbed Guy from the side with his jaw and carried him away. Guy fighting to get free of its hold, he punched a small gap between the shark's teeth and made it release him, but only slowing the shark down momentarily. No effect. He didn't hear the fourth shark behind him, but he did feel it ram into him and drawing blood from him. Before it swam away, Guy was sinking into the bottom quickly, barely able to think with his back hurting. He hit the bottom with a boom and the sharks hit it right after him, tearing the ground into pieces. Guy fought them, kicking one in the teeth and elbowing another in the jaw, using the leaf hurricane on 2 others, but whenever he managed to punch a hole in one of them it would just regenerate. He couldn't go on for much longer, not with his injuries and the fact that being underwater for more time will make him drown. Kneeling down, he tried to assess his situation. The sharks started circling him, the underwater vultures. I'm out of time, he realized. I have to end this now. He glanced at the figure of Himawari, who was standing above water, still recovering. Whenever she was hurt, he realized her body would stop for a moment for her to regenerate before she could attack again. I can't rely on her, he figured. No other choice. He placed his arms together and got into his stance. The 8 inner gates. First gate, the gate of opening release. Second gate, gate of rest. Third gate, gate of life. Fourth gate, gate of pain. Fifth gate of closing open. He felt the chakra he released washing over him, radiating from him. The ground started to shake and the water blew up into geysers. Guy screamed. The 8 inner gates. Sixth gate of joy opened. The wave of energy from him destroyed the sharks around him completely, not giving them a chance to regenerate. The water bubbled with heat, the geysers growing stronger, steam starting to come out of the small lake. Guy stood in the middle of a tsunami of his own, making water pouring down on him like rain, yet a small clearing of ground where he stood stayed dried enough. The water pushed away from it by him. Above him the shark man jumped away, not wanting to be steamed alive. Guy screamed. The force he released with his enhanced chakra breaking the ground he stood on like jagged lightning trails. Niji waited for an opportunity to strike. Once Guy had opened the 6th gate, he knew there was no better chance. Suddenly, Himawari had appeared behind the clone who trapped him, striking with an air palm and dispelling it, freeing Niji. He gasped, landing wobbly on his feet, and tried to get his bearings. He coughed out a bit of water and wiped at his mouth. Now free, Niji jumped out and moved into a stance, performing the 8 trigrams, 32 palms, dispersing the other clone that held 10 captive. Himawari struck a stance of her own, locked on, she said, rushing the clone holding Lee and hitting him with such force he flew away before dispersing. Niji caught 10, who groaned and gasped for air. 10, are you alright? Yeah. 10 stood up shakingly. Thanks Niji, I owe you saved us, Lee said to Himawari. I am grateful. Himawari didn't say anything, staring at him for a moment with a blank expression before turning and running back to where Guy was, her palm ready to strike Himawari. Niji called her too weak to move after her. Guy jumped up right in front of the blue-skinned man, but the bastard moved away before Guy could strike, jumping on the water streams. Just as the Akatsuki member reached the end of the geysers, Himawari appeared next to him, striking him down. Back to Guy. Unfortunately, as he fell down, he swatted at her with his sword, sending her flying into a large rock pillar where she hit her back against and fell into the water, sinking down unconscious. Himawari. Guy heard Niji's distressed cry, but didn't have time to focus on it, trusting that his students would be able to take care of it while he deals with the Akatsuki fellow who was plummeting at him in great speed. He made sure to push himself up some more with the remnants of the geysers just as they fell back down into the water, and struck a stance, both of his hands thrown wide to the sides, palms up and one leg folded. The man moved to hit Guy with his blade, but Guy evaded it and kicked him up, using his speed, appearing again below him to kick him higher. He appeared in front of the shark man, sending a swift flaming punch into his face and then another in a successive barrage of them. Asaku, he yelled, delivering the final punch, setting the man on fire and sending him plummeting down to the water. The man hit the ground with a satisfactory splash and steam cloud, leaving Guy to pant as he landed down on his feet. The water began to disappear, evaporating quickly now that the user who cast the jutsu was no longer able to maintain it. Somewhere to his left, Himawari's unconscious form had appeared, lying limp on the ground. Himawari. Niji ran to her, Lee and 10. Following him. Guy was worried about the girl who had aided him to take down the Akatsuki member, but he needed to make sure said member was gone before he turned his back, waiting until all the steam and water were gone. Guy spotted the body, beaten and bloodied, finally able to breathe deeply. He turned his attention from it to his team, deciding to check it after he made sure they were all right. Once he reached them, he saw the grim situation. All 3 of his students seemed to be barely scratched. Himawari, on the other hand, the girl's head was in Tenten's lap, her yellow hoodie jacket open and revealing several bloodstains on her white t-shirt stemming from wounds that covered from her ribcage to her stomach, probably from the Akatsuki member's kicks. Her palms were worn out, the skin peeling in some places. All of her body was covered in bruises and cuts, a small stream of blood running down from the corner of her mouth. Next to her, Niji gritted his teeth. I should have done something, he said with self-loathing. I promised to myself I'd protect her, yet I wasn't able to do a thing while she risked her life to save us. You couldn't have done anything, Niji. 10 tried to comfort him. You were trapped, none of us could move. I don't believe any of us could have stopped her, Guy commented grimly. The moment she saw Niji get trapped, it was like she blacked out. Everything she did was out of pure instinct to protect. It was a rage Guy had rarely seen in a shinobi, taking over someone's actions and leaving them to fight with only their pure will. This girl was one formidable foe, and he hoped there would never come a day where he'd have to face her in that state. Unknown to him, Niji had already known what that rage was called, a niece's rage. Niji squeezed Himawari's hand, checking her pulse. It was weak, but it was there, giving him some sort of relief. According to a quick assessment from 10, Himawari had a few broken ribs, possible internal bleeding and multiple wounds and bruises. Niji couldn't imagine how Boruto would react to that knowledge. Niji 10 started hesitantly. How do you know, Himawari? What do you mean? Even angry and distraught, Niji remembered to fake ignorance. Don't do that, 10 scolded him. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean. She has the Byakugan and calls you Nizan. We can put 2 and 2 together. You know it's complicated. Niji chose his words carefully, and it's not my secret to share before anyone could say anything else. Himawari stirred coughing water mixed with blood. Niji tensed, watching her eyelids flutter open. Her eyes were blue again, looking up at him. No trace of the Byakugan white. Niji Nizan, she murmured in a tired daze, coughing up some more blood. Shh, it's okay. He tried to smile reassuringly at her. Everything is alright now. Himawari, what happened? She asked weakly. You mean you don't remember? Tenten asked her, and Himawari shook her head weakly. Why does everything hurt? His niece asked in such a small voice. Niji wanted to beat up the corpse of the man who hurt her. You and Gai-sensei fought the Akatsuki member with the sword and defeated him, Lee told her excitedly. It was a glorious battle. Himawari blinked in confusion. Did I really fight someone? She asked Niji in confusion. Yes, Niji nodded. You did very well. I'm proud of you. Himawari smiled tiredly. Niji Nizan is proud of me, she giggled, but the giggling turned into violent coughing, making her shoot up and causing her shoulders to shake. She spat up some more blood into her palm and winced. We should get you back to Sunagakure for medical attention, Guy said, looking concerned. Himawari shook her head slightly. No, take me to Sarada-chan. Niji hadn't heard her use that honorific in a while. Himawari, don't be ridiculous. You're hurt and in need of rest and healing, he rebuffed her request. Sarada-chan is a medic and she's with Sakura-san, Himawari argued, giving him a pleading look. Please, Niji Nizan. Niji was battling with himself. On one hand, he knew that taking her to Sunagakure was the logical thing to do. On the other, who could resist her begging face? Alright, he complied, but if I see your injuries are getting worse before we reach them, I'll take you back to Suna myself. Thank you, Himawari whispered before closing her eyes and falling unconscious to Tenen's lap. Niji watched her sleeping face for a moment before gathering himself and getting up. Lee, will you be able to carry her? Of course. Lee gave him a thumbs up. I will carry her with caution. Niji nodded at him and crouched down swiftly, pulling Himawari into his arms. We'd better get going. He handed her carefully to Lee, who made sure she was safely wrapped around his back while handing his bag to Niji to carry in his stead. We've wasted enough time here, right? Tenten stood up and dusted herself off. I want to check just one more thing before we go, Guy said, looking over to where the man they fought laid. It's strange, I got the feeling I've fought him before. But Guy looked at the corpse of the man in front of them. So you did not remember even meeting this man? Lee asked him. That's weird, Tenten commented, cause from what he was saying he knew everything about you. Guy-sensei, something's going on here, Niji said while looking at the body with his Byakugan. Guy looked at the body again, tensing when he realized something was different as his face. The man's face had completely changed. No longer the blue skin or sharp teeth or the round eyes. It was someone else. Who is that? Lee asked in shock. Guy-sensei, what does this mean? I don't know, Guy admitted, but there's one thing that I am sure. They all looked at him. There's no way I've ever met him. Was he using a transformation jutsu? Lee tried to understand. No, Lee, Niji deactivated his Byakugan. This jutsu is on a whole other level. This means the real one's still hauled up somewhere, doesn't it? Tenten asked all of them, knowing the answer. Niji gritted his teeth, fists clenched. Then Himawari got hurt for nothing? Not for nothing. Guy placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. She saved me and all of you. Yeah, don't worry, Niji. Tenten smiled at him. Niji nodded shortly before going back to the topic at hand. I think it's safe to assume at this point that his goal was to gather information and stall us here for a while. If that is the case, we have not a moment to lose, Lee declared. Alright then, let's hurry, Guy decided. They had spent enough time staring at a dead body pack and stepped forward. The others are this way, he told them, running ahead. They all ran after him on their way to the Akatsuki hideout. Naruto and the others were moving in the trees when they sensed someone approaching. We've got incoming, Kakashi warned them. Out of the trees to their left emerged Boruto and Sarada, who looked like they were in a spar gone wrong. Both of them were slightly bruised and fatigued, their clothes a bit tattered, and Boruto was wincing every other step. You're back soon, Kakashi noted as they joined the formation. How did it go with Itachi? Sarada averted her eyes from him. Once you left we attacked him and he dispelled. Once I landed a punch. He was probably only there to stall us anyway. For them to send a clone to stall us even for this long could mean only one thing, Chio said in concern as she jumped to the next branch. It's worse than I thought. The extraction of the Biju has already begun. Naruto, Sakura, Boruto and Sarada turned to look at her in worry. Kakashi nodded at her words. We're out of time. We need to get to Gaara right away. So wait, hold on. Sakura jumped closer to them. What do you mean by extraction? They're after the Shikaku, Chio explained grimly. If they can draw out the Ichibi, they can create a new Jinchuriki. A new Jinchuriki, Sakura repeated after her, confused. Didn't Boruto mention a Jinchuriki earlier? Naruto looked at the blonde, who was wincing whenever he took a high leap. I told you, didn't I? Chio looked down. How the Biju possessed power beyond all reckoning and how every land has tried to use them as military weapons. The Jinchuriki is the name given to those who control that power. She looked up, her expression grim. Sakura gasped. But earlier you said the Biju are huge concentrations of chakra and that no one could control them. Not for lack of trying, Chio corrected herself. There were of course those who tried to harness that great power for their own purposes, attempting to Control the Biju by sealing them away inside of people. Naruto's eyes widened next to him. Boruto's jaw clenched as if he remembered something unpleasant. By doing so they hoped to suppress the Biju's great power and then bend that might to their will. Naruto placed a hand on his stomach where he knew the seal was hidden, and the ones with the Biju inside of them, such as our village's Gaara, are known as Jinchuriki. Chiyo spoke as if she was telling a tragic story. Jinchuriki wield unimaginable power thanks to their resonance with the Biju they carry, and if you count Gaara, then all told there have been 3 Jinchuriki in the history of Sunagakure thus far. All the while she told the story, she was writing something in a scroll. Once she finished, she summoned a bird toy and gave it the scroll, sending it away. Sakura's mouth twisted. There were several wars fought using the Jinchuriki, weren't there? She asked angrily, surprising Naruto. That's correct, Chiyo said. Then the people who've become Jinchuriki. Sakura stopped when she noticed the painful expression on Naruto's face. Alright then, how are the Biju extracted? Naruto looked at her in surprise. A couple of things are needed. Chiyo counted a sealing jutsu strong enough to counter the Biju's power and a lot of time, but were things to reach that point? Then the Jinchuriki, you don't mean? Sakura didn't finish the sentence, but they all thought it. Next to Naruto, Boruto's shoulders trembled. That's right, dear, Chiyo said sadly. Once the Biju is extracted they die. Sakura looked away, tears forming in her eyes. You always were quick to cry, huh, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked Sakura. She looked at him with tears streaming down her cheeks. Hey, don't worry, I'm gonna save Gaara. Naruto smiled at her. But who's gonna save you? Boruto mumbled, surprising them all before he jumped further ahead. Silence surrounded the group after the uncomfortable question on their mind was said aloud, no one knowing what to say. Boruto, Sarada admonished him once she recovered from the surprise of his statement. We need to hurry, Boruto told them, taking off ahead into the dark woods. Boruto, wait. Sarada caught up with him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't go breaking formation like that. Boruto turned to look at her, and for the first time Naruto noticed how his scar darkened his face. Boruto only ever used one eye. Ever since Naruto met the guy he seemed sad, hurt even. Are you okay? Sarada asked in concern. Better than most Jinchuriki apparently, Boruto said bitterly. He slowed down a bit like she asked, muttering things under his breath. Sarada turned to them. Sorry about him, he gets like this sometimes. It's alright, Sakura assured her, but he sounds really distraught, I guess. Sarada looked at her friend's back. Jinchuriki are a difficult subject for him, really. Chiyo sounded interested. Why is that? Oh, Sarada bit her lip. It's complicated. We're close, Kakashi interrupted the conversation. They were almost at the Akatsuki's hideout. Niji noticed that Guy was faltering slightly as they moved. Are you feeling okay, Guy-sensei? Lee asked his mentor. Are you kidding? Guy smiled. My battery never runs down, Lee. He laughed, not noticing until he hit his head on a tree branch and slid down. Guy-sensei, Lee called out in worry. I don't know, he doesn't look so good to me. 10-10 examine. Guy, what do you expect? Niji asked her. He just used the Asakujaku, didn't he? We need to let him rest for a while. Good idea. 10-10 nodded. I'll bandage Himawari while we're at it. It was evening when Kakashi decided enough was enough. Stop here, he told them. They all landed in front of him. Why, what is it, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked him. We're taking a short break, Kakashi told them. That's a very wise decision, Chiyo said. Naruto, on the other hand, did not think that. He ran up to Kakashi. What do you mean? Come on, you were the one saying we couldn't waste any more time if we just lay around here doing nothing. Gaara's gonna be. Naruto. Kakashi stopped him. Look around you, he gestured to Boruto and Sarada, who were both out of breath. Sarada looked the worst out of them, rubbing her forehead and wincing like she had a headache, both of them clearly fatigued. From what he understood, Sarada and Boruto had also stayed up almost all night before they left, waiting for Himawari to return. In addition to their earlier fight with Itachi's clone, they needed to rest. If we take our time resting up now, we'll ultimately reach out destination faster. Naruto looked like he wanted to argue but said nothing. Keep in mind, Kakashi drove his argument home. Tomorrow we may end up facing the guys who kidnapped Gaara. He knew Naruto understood. We need our full strength. Naruto nodded, clearly not happy about it though. Yeah, alright, I understand. Niji watched the fire crackle as his teammates slept. Himawari laid on a field mattress near the fire and was covered by Niji's blankets. Tomorrow it was most likely he'd meet Boruto and Naruto again, and even though Naruto wasn't Himawari's father yet, Niji still feared to reveal to them Himawari was injured under his watch. They all then settled down, starting a campfire and leaning against the trees. Sarada was bandaging Boruto's chest, him having a large black bruise on it from her attack earlier. He was starting to regret suggesting it in the first place. He winced when she touched it, trying to endure it by clenching his jaw. Sorry, she apologized while applying some ointment to the bruise. It's okay, Boruto hissed when she applied a bit more pressure. Ow, 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 I'm almost done, she told him, wrapping a bandage around his chest. There, Boruto rolled down his shirt. Thanks, Sarada. Sarada smiled at him before leaning back on the tree, pressing a hand with a green glow emanating from it on her forehead. Were you hit on the head? Sakura asked her in concern. No, Sarada shook her head. I just get these bad headaches recently. Doing this helps. You should rest. Boruto took off his jacket and covered her with it. Sarada blinked in surprise, but then a yawn escaped her mouth and she nodded sleepily, settling on his shoulder and closing her eyes. Boruto continued to eat like nothing was wrong, not noticing the few raised eyebrows directed at them. "Are you sure you're not dating Sakura?" asked him, fighting to hide her smile. Boruto coughed on his food for a moment before clearing his throat and rolling his eye. "Pretty sure I'd know if we were." He looked at the fire, entranced by the flames. "Are you worried about Himawari?" Sakura asked him. He lifted his head, looking at her. "I have a bad feeling," he explained, "that something happened to her and I couldn't stop it." "I'm sure it's nothing," Sakura assured him. "You should get some sleep too, Boruto-san." "Just Boruto." Boruto chuckled. "And thanks, we all should get a little rest," Kakashi told them. Right in front of Niji, Guy suddenly opened his eyes. "All right, break time's over." His sensei rose up. "Guy-sensei, are you sure?" Lee asked him. "Absolutely." Guy gave him a thumbs up. "I feel perfectly fine. All I needed was a little rest." HNGH. Himawari stirred, focusing all of their attention on her. She rose up from her mattress and rubbed her eyes. "What, it's all right, Himawari?" Niji smiled at her. "Oh, Niji." Knees and Himawari looked at him. "What's going on?" "We're about to move," he told her, getting up to check on her more closely. "How are you feeling?" "Better." She nodded, removing the blanket from her legs. "I heal up quickly." "I'm sure." Niji remembered Naruto's ability to bounce back almost immediately after being knocked down, and Himawari was his child. "But I'm still going to insist. Lee will carry you until we arrive." "All right," she complied, still sleepy. "I'm in your care, Lee-san. Do not worry, Himawari. I will carry you without fail." Lee gave her a thumbs up, but she fell asleep again on Niji's shoulder. The Hyuga chuckled. Sometimes he forgot, but she was still 14. "All right, everyone, to keep to our schedule, we're gonna have to move double time from here on," and Guy informed them with a smile, as if saying, "Let's go to the store and buy snacks." "Ah, 10:10 grown. "No, let us make it triple time," Lee offered. "Then we might actually arrive ahead of schedule." "Good thinking," Guy nodded. "As a matter of fact, why don't we make it quadruple time?" "Quiet down, you two." Niji glared at them. "You're going to wake Himawari up," he scoffed. "Besides, what you're suggesting is not even physically possible. Will you guys please stop getting carried away?" 10:10 asked of them. "A sensei, I believe triple time would be enough," Lee told Guy. "Lee, I think even that's pushing it." Pakin told Lee. Kakashi sat on a branch waiting. "All right, it's time." He jumped down, walking into the light of the fire. "That's enough rest," he said. "We should get moving." Chio nodded. "Okay, you four, wake up," he called the four teens who were sleeping soundly. Sakura and Sarada got up grudgingly, yet Boruto still hasn't opened his eye. "Boruto." Sarada shook his shoulder. "Wake up, it's time to leave." Boruto jolted and opened his eye. All right. "I'm up." Kakashi raised an eyebrow at that because he could tell Boruto was acting. In fact, he doubted the teen had fallen asleep at all. Naruto groaned. "Okay, in a minute." He turned on his side. "Just give me a minute more." Kakashi was going to say something when he saw Boruto smirk. The teen walked up to Naruto and crouched down near his head. Boruto took a deep breath and cupped a hand around his mouth. "Wake up," he yelled into Naruto's ear, making the other blonde jump up and throw the blanket away. He glared at Boruto while rubbing his ear, but Boruto just grinned at him. "Morning sunshine, ready to save the Kazekage?" Naruto stopped glaring at him and nodded. "You bet I'm gonna save him." "Naruto, not so fast. Wait up," Sakura called after Naruto. Yet Boruto had a feeling his young father won't listen to his teammate. "Why is that boy pushing himself so hard to save Gaara?" Chio asked Kakashi. "He's not even from the same village." She narrowed her eyes. "What is he? What's that boy's story?" Kakashi looked at her. "Naruto is a Jinchuriki as well. He has the Kyuubi sealed within him." "And there it is." Boruto saw the shock in Chio's eyes. He hated the fact that reacting this way was what was appropriate in this time. In the future, his father being the host to the Kyuubi was common knowledge, and it bothered no one. It's not that he has any special feelings for Sunagakure or its people, but he and Gaara are both Jinchuriki. Naruto knows how Gaara feels better than anyone in Suna ever could. After all, those who are Jinchuriki have been treated the same way in every village. Kakashi continued his story, making Boruto clench his fist in anger. Next to him, Sarada placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, which he was grateful for. "That's why he feels this desperate need to save Gaara. It doesn't matter whether Gaara is from Suna or Konoha or anywhere else. He's a friend, the only friend who's felt the same pain Naruto's felt." Boruto remembered when he was younger, before his dad even became Hokage, Gaara would come to visit them when he was visiting the village for diplomatic purposes. Himawari was always a bit frightened by the man, but once he made her sand pandas in the backyard, she always warmed up to him. Boruto used to sit with the adults as they reminisce and talk about their lives, wondering how two very different people like his father and the Kazekage managed to become friends. Now he knew Naruto's dream is to become Hokage, so the news that Gaara had been made Kazekage hit him pretty hard. He was frustrated, but at the same time deep in his heart he was profoundly happy for Gaara. That made Boruto smile a bit. His dad was always a bit immature, but it was moments like these that made him think not all hope is lost. You see, Naruto has another remarkable gift. He doesn't need much time or many words to make a friend out of anyone he meets. Niji landed on the water in front of the large boulder. waiting for Lee to land as well so he can check on Himawari. "How are you feeling?" he asked her as he helped her get down from Lee's back and stand on the water. "Much better," she said, then winced. Niji had a feeling she's been putting on a brave face since a while back, and now he all but confirmed his suspicions. She ignored his scolding look and smiled at Lee. "Thank you for carrying me, Lee-san. It is no problem, Himawari." Lee gave her a thumbs up and a shining smile. "So this is the place?" Guy asked. Himawari nodded. "This is where Pakin and I tracked them. Nagara's on the other side of that boulder." Pakin, who was resting on Lee's shoulder, said before jumping down. "It won't be easy to get past that barrier." Guy walked closer to it. "What's the plan?" Ten asked. "We smash our way in," Lee suggested enthusiastically. "No." Lee. Guy turned to his protege, but before he could say anything else another few presences appeared behind them. Guy smirked. "Late as usual, Kakashi. Well, you see, we ran into a bit of trouble along the way." Niji turned around to see Boruto and Sarada land together with their team. Naruto. Lee called them Sakura-san. "Wait a minute, by a little trouble you don't mean me, do you?" "Kakashi, an old lady?" asked Kakashi, but Niji's eyes stayed trained to Boruto, who was checking the surroundings. "Oni-chan," Himawari called her brother, getting all of the attention. They all turned to her, seeing her bandaged state, before their gazes moved to Boruto, who stood with a frozen expression as he looked at his sister. "Oni-chan." Himawari looked at her brother, her smile fading as his expression morphed into anger. "What the hell happened to you?" Boruto's anger brought attention to Himawari, who was rubbing the back of her head and chuckling nervously, all covered in bandages. Kakashi frowned. He knew there was a risk to any mission, but out of them all Himawari was the only one that was badly injured. "Big brother, it's not as bad as it looks. It looks like you fought someone you shouldn't have been fighting and then got tossed into a rock, is what it looks like." Boruto's expression was one that preceded mass murder, and waiting in line behind a particularly loud person. His hands were clenched, eyes shooting daggers. "Well," Himawari looked down, "I don't really remember any of it." "You don't remember getting badly hurt?" Sakura asked as she looked over the girl's injuries. Himawari was covered in slowly darkening bruises and no longer bleeding cuts. Kakashi noted bandages peeking from under her hoodie. Boruto froze, his only eye glaring intensely at his sister. "You blacked out again, didn't you?" Himawari avoided his eyes. "Maybe, Himawari," he yelled in frustration. "You know how dangerous that can be. Dad told you never to do that." "Their dad?" "Now hold on a second, young man." Guy barged in the conversation. "If it wasn't for Himawari here, we all would have been toast." Boruto turned to look at Niji, who pursed his lips tightly and nodded. "What happened?" "We ran into some trouble on our end. It seems like the Akatsuki sent someone to stall us. I had to use my Asakujaku to defeat him." Guy explained, looking equal parts exhausted and proud of himself. "He had to use that technique." Kakashi blinked in surprise. "The enemy must have been quite formidable." "Himawari here helped me battle him. She was mighty impressive." Guy gestured to Himawari, who was still getting fretted over by both Sakura and Sarada. "She even pushed me out of an explosion once." "You did what?" Boruto looked absolutely horrified, and he scanned her like he could find the marks of the explosion on her skin, and considering her injuries he might. "I don't think you're helping, Guy-sensei." Ten told her sensei in bemusement. "Where were you?" Boruto asked Niji, angrily taking a step closer to the Hyuga, the river beneath his feet rippling under the force of his steps. "During all of that, what were you doing, big brother?" Himawari drew her brother's attention with a serious tone, which Kakashi didn't think he heard her use ever since he met her. There was a vulnerable edge to her voice. "Stop it." Boruto held his tongue under his sister's gaze, clearly not happy about it. "Just you promised to be careful," he mumbled, looking like a child who got berated by their parents. "But I didn't say that if my teammates were in danger I wouldn't help them." Himawari shook her head, immediately wincing at the sudden move she did, and they were. Boruto licked his lips, not looking at her. "Just don't do something like that again," he grumbled. "I can't heal you completely right now since I need much more advanced equipment to make sure there aren't any internal bleedings." "I missed," Sakura told Himawari as she stood up. "I've patched up all the wounds I could find, but if you move too much it'll reopen them, so try not to move much." "That means you're staying here," Boruto told her firmly. "What?" Himawari pouted, looking scandalized. "But I want to help." "Boruto's right, Himawari," Niji told her sternly. "You're staying here, end of discussion." But Himawari opened her mouth and then closed it, noticing the crossing looks both Boruto and Niji were sending her, and sighing, "All right," she complied anyways. Ten broke the weird silence that fell on them for a moment. "Who's that old lady?" "Oh, this is Lady Chiyo. She's an advisor from Suna." Sakura introduced her. "Very pleased to meet you." Chiyo made a peace sign. "Well then." Guy turned to Kakashi. "Let's do this." "Kakashi, right?" Kakashi glanced at the tag covering the boulder. Niji checked the insides of the cave with his Byakugan. "Inside it looks like there's a large cavern, but what?" Lee asked. "I just can't quite make out what's going on in there." Niji narrowed his eyes. "I see several people." "Niji, what about Gaara?" Naruto asked him urgently, shaking. "Niji, what's happening? Is he one of the people you see?" Niji pushed him away. "Back off a second, I'm trying to locate him now." A few moments of silence passed. "Niji!" Naruto yelled, making Niji jump in surprise. "Take it easy," Niji told Naruto, refocusing. "I don't." "What is that thing?" he murmured to himself. "What is it? What's going on?" Naruto Shook Neji. What's in there? To Kakashi's surprise, Boruto was the one who grabbed Naruto's hands and removed them from Neji's shoulder. Give him a minute, he told Naruto. Breathe, you need to stay calm. Neji suddenly deactivated his Byakugan. Well, what did you see? Sakura asked him. It's hard to describe with words, Neji said, looking rather haunted. Brother Neji. Himawari placed a hand on his shoulder hesitantly. He turned to her and smiled slightly to assure her. Wait, so that means Tenten looked at the boulder? Yes, Lee nodded. Whatever it is, we will have to go see it for ourselves. That makes things easy, doesn't it? Guy smiled. He jumped back several feet and struck a stance out of the corner of his eye. Kakashi saw Boruto lean closer in the direction of the boulder. Frowning, Guy started to run at high speed, preparing his fist. He was going to hit the boulder. Guy punched the boulder, shaking the mountain and creating ripples and what seemed to be a barrier. That's quite a barrier, Guy said, walking back to them. I could have told you that myself, Boruto said, crossing his arms. I could sense it from half a kilometer out. You could? Kakashi looked at the blonde. Why not say anything then? I was going to, Boruto shrugged, but he tried to punch it before I could get a word in. Himawari giggled, and Sarada sighed. You wanted him to punch it, didn't you? Boruto didn't answer, though the corners of his mouth did twitch upward slightly. So the ever so serious Boruto has a childish side to him, is that right? Kakashi noted to himself with a hidden smile. The kid was so stern and fierce. Kakashi had wondered if he ever smiled at all. What is the plan? Lee raised his fists, looking ready to try and take on the boulder himself. Well, Lee, it's pretty obvious we need to get rid of that barrier. Guy walked back to them. And how are we going to do that? Tenten asked. Before we even think about breaking it, we should know what kind of barrier it is, Sakura concluded, examining the large rock. That's right, Guy smiled. So figure out the type of barrier. That's step one, right, Kakashi? Yeah, Kakashi nodded, examining the seal placed on the rock. What do you think? Chio asked him, also staring at him. It could be a 5-seal barrier, Kakashi guessed. Boruto walked up to the boulder and touched it, watching the ripples created from the contact with his palm. He turned to Kakashi. Definitely a 5-seal, he said, nodding. The chakra signature match 5-seal barrier, Naruto asked in worry. It's a strong layer of protection in which 5 tags with the word forbidden written on them are fastened around the area of the guard. 1 forbidden tag is in front of us and 4 more must be in other locations, Kakashi explained. Can't we just pull them off? Guy asked him. It's not that easy, Kakashi shook his head. The tags are in 5 different places and need to be taken down at the exact same moment, so we'd have to remove them simultaneously. Sakura understood. Right, Kakashi said. The barrier won't budge unless all 5 tags are pulled at the exact same time. It's a tall order. That's only 1 tag, which means there's 4 more out there, Guy concluded and thought. Alright then, let's do it. Naruto was ready to jump in action, fidgeting impatiently. How do we figure out where the other tags are? Neji. Kakashi turned to the Hyuga. I understand, Neji nodded. Next to him, Tenten frowned. Hold on, can't Himawari? Neji nudged her ribs and she closed her mouth. On the back of Kakashi's mind, he wondered how that sentence could have ended. Neji made the quick hand seal to focus his chakra Byakugan. He looked around a bit, his eyes darting around, seeing things beyond them. I found them awesome, Neji, Naruto said excitedly. Point them out. One is on a boulder about 500 meters northeast of us. Neji counted. The second one is on a tree trunk beside a riverbank 350 meters southeast. The third you'll find 650 meters northwest on a cliff, and the last one is in the woods less than 800 meters to the southwest. That's 4. If that's the case, each one of them is pretty far apart, Sakura said and thought. How will we signal each other? I think I can handle that. Guy took off his backpack and opened it. We should just be in range for these. They're wireless radios. Whoa, that's amazing, Naruto praised him. Good thinking, Kakashi nodded. Guy gave them a thumbs up and a shining smile. Okay, so we'll stay in constant communication and follow Neji's directions to the tags. Guy distributed. The electronics team, Guy, is the faster team, so we'll be the ones to handle this mission. We're all counting on you. Naruto gave them a thumbs up. Himawari whispered something in Neji's ear and he nodded. I promise, he told her. Boruto patted the Hyuga's back and exchanged a look with him. Alright Lee, you head northwest into the woods. Guy ordered. The northeast boulder is yours, Neji. Neji finished inserting the device in his ear. I can handle that. Tenten, you'll get the southeast, right? No problem, Tenten nodded. And I'll take care of the one on the northwest cliff, Guy said finally. That's the one in the trickiest location and should be the hardest to illuminate. What's the frequency? Kakashi asked him, adjusting his settings. 174. Kakashi twisted the button accordingly. Lee breathed in deeply. Testing, do you read me? He yelled into the comms, deafening all of them. Lee, your microphone is too loud, Tenten yelled at him, her hands covering her ears. Lee bowed. I apologize, he yelled into his microphone again, making all of them who wore the set jump like they had been electrocuted. Lee, the mic. Guy pointed at the volume adjusting button. Lee blushed and adjusted it. Sorry guys, he said in normal volume. Alright team. Guy placed his hand in the middle, humming. He looked at Lee, who blinked. Oh right. He placed his hand on top of Guy's. Guy chuckled. Turning to 1010 looked dejected but sighed and placed in the middle on top of Lee's guy chuckled again and turned to Niji. His humming was caught off once he saw the glare Niji gave him. Kakashi was pretty sure Niji would rather gouge out his Byakugan before he'd put his hand in the middle with them. They stared at each other, both not relenting, just as Guy was about to give up. Himawari, who watched everything in interest, just giggled and took Niji's hand, putting it in the middle with them. Niji sent her a look of a man who has been betrayed by his comrade, but she just innocently smiled at him, making him sigh. Onward with the power of youth. Guy shouted attack yeah. Lee yelled attack yeah, attack yeah, attack yeah, and one more for good luck, attack yeah, scatter. And with that, Teen Guy disappeared in all four directions of the wind. Oh man, that was so cool, Naruto said enthusiastically. Himawari nodded excitedly, bouncing on the pillows of her feet. It was awesome. Hey, we should do it too, Naruto and she said to each other simultaneously. Sakura crossed her arms and looked away. I would rather die. Me too, Kakashi said. Not a chance, Chio said. Over my mutilated dead body. Boruto looked disgusted. Sarada just glared at them. Himawari and Naruto exchanged disappointed looks and sighed. Alright, it's just about time for me to shove off. Pakin spoke. No reason for me to stick around, I'd just be getting in the way. Himawari said sadly as she crouched down and patted his head. I'm gonna miss you, Pakin. Yeah, the pug paused to let himself be petted by her before moving away. Thanks, Pakin. Kakashi waved him goodbye. Then see you guys later. Pakin poofed away. Naruto watched Sakura and Sarada stand by, ready to take the boulder down in a punch. Once Kakashi signaled them, he looked to his right where Boruto was helping Himawari lean against the wall of the mountain carefully. She looked pale and winced a lot, not able to hide her pain anymore. Naruto didn't know why that knowledge made his chest squeeze and hurt, but he just knew he wanted her to go back to how she was last time he saw her, happy and petting cute animals. Boruto walked over to him, leaning against the wall next to him. You ready? Of course. Naruto clenched his fists. I'm gonna save Gaara. I know. Boruto rolled his eye like he guessed that's what Naruto would say. You don't need to convince me, you know. Naruto blinked. What did you say? Boruto looked up at him right now. What did you just say? That you don't need to convince me. After that, Naruto frowned. You said, you know. Oh, Boruto rubbed the back of his neck. It's just this verbal tick I have, he told Naruto, whose eyes widened slightly. Verbal tick? He also had one that sounded a lot like it. It comes out when I'm emotional. Are you emotional? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. It bit. Boruto worded it like a question. I just don't like the air, it makes me antsy. The air? Yeah. Boruto looked at the sky. It feels off, something's not right, you know. Naruto wrinkled his forehead. Could it have something to do with what's happening to Gaara above them? Kakashi leaned and grabbed the corner of the tag. Ready when you are, he spoke into his microphone. Sarada and Sakura got into position, nodding at each other. We'll make our assault using a button hook entry, Kakashi told all of them. Sounds like a plan to me, Naruto said, preparing himself next to him. Boruto cracked his knuckles. Yeah. Sakura clenched her fists. Sarada smirked, pushing her glasses up. Kakashi ripped the tag off. Now you two, right? They ran to the boulder, fists ready. Shn and Arrow, they yelled simultaneously, punching the boulder and breaking it with their strength and making it crumble to pieces, jumping away to not get it by the falling debris. Kakashi landed next to Naruto. As they waited for the rocks to stop falling, he signaled, and they moved. In landing inside the cave, Naruto allowed his eyes a moment to get used to the dim light in the dark place before his gaze landed on the two figures in the dark. What? His eyes widened and he stood frozen. What is this? Gaara laid on the ground, eyes closed and face pale. He wasn't moving. Naruto's whole body trembled in anger. The blonde Akatsuki member was sitting on Gaara, looking bored. Naruto was shaking, horrified at the image. Finally, the blonde Akatsuki member spoke. Now then, which one of you would be the Jinchuriki? Naruto gritted his teeth hard, his fists clenched so tight his nails dug into the soft skin of his palm. Fury flowed through him like molten lava. He growled breathlessly. You bastards, I'll kill the both of you. Next to him, Kakashi tensed. Where the hell do you think you're sitting? Naruto screamed at them, eyes not moving from the blonde Akatsuki member, his ass parked on Gaara's back like it was a goddamn bench. Well, so much for that mystery, the blonde guy said. This kid's the Jinchuriki. He's the one who burst in and barked first. Alright, he turned to his partner seriously. Itachi was right on the money. I suggest you get off the Kazekage before we make you, Boruto warned him, pulling out a kunai from his pouch. Gaara, Naruto called to his friend. What the hell are you doing? Come on, why are you just lying there? But Gaara didn't answer him, still unmoving. Get up, Gaara. What, are you deaf enough? Naruto. Kakashi yelled at him. Naruto stopped, his body still trembling. You know full well that Naruto's teeth ground against each other, the fury inside of him raging. Your friend's right, and you know it too, the Akatsuki blonde said. He's been dead for a while now. He lightly slapped Gaara's face with the back of his hand and Naruto saw red. Give him back. Naruto growled at them. Give Gaara back, you damn AHH. Naruto rushed at them, intent on ripping their limbs off if necessary. He was stopped by Kakashi, who stood in his way. Cool it, he told Naruto. Charge in without thinking and "We're done for." Behind him he heard Boruto whisper something to Sarada and her whisper something back. The odd-looking Akatsuki member with the cloth covering his face looked at his partner. "What's something on your mind, Sasori? My man, I'll hold on to him," the crouching man said. The blonde looked at his partner. "Since it appears that Jinchuriki will stop at nothing to get him back." The blonde man looked at Naruto, before glancing down at Gaara. "Yeah, that's putting it lightly." "Okay." Kakashi analyzed the situation. "It looks like the guy on the left was the one that infiltrated Suna and kidnapped the Kazekage, which means this one." Their gaze shifted to the man with his face covered. "Was the puppet master who injured Kankuro so badly?" The two Akatsuki members seemed to be getting into an argument, the air between them tensing, making all of the shinobi tense too. "Apparently Deidara," the crouching masked Akatsuki said louder. "One of us doesn't understand what true art is." "That would be you, my friend." Deidara answered. "Naruto has had enough. You lousy rotten. Gaara's dead and they're just talking about art. What the fuck is wrong with them? Nonsense. Internal beauty is what constitutes real art," the puppet master said. "Don't be absurd. True art only lasts a moment." Deidara argued. "Enough is enough," Naruto yelled. He was done listening to them. Pulling out a weapon scroll, he took the large shuriken that had appeared and charged at the two. Throwing the shuriken at the masked one, he blocked it with his metal tail, flicking it away. "Are you trying to make me angry?" he asked Naruto without looking at him. "Hey, easy." Deidara tried to calm down his partner. "I told you he wouldn't want to hear about it, didn't I? Give me a break, will you? Why don't you explain it to me again?" Deidara, the puppet man said, waving his tail dangerously. Deidara smirked as he stood from Gaara's body. "Art is one thing and one thing only." He looked at his palm. The explosion itself. He threw something into the air, blowing up in a cloud of smoke and revealing a large clay bird waving its wings. The bird grabbed Gaara's limp body with its mouth and Deidara jumped on it. "See you around, my man," he yelled to the puppet man before taking off on the bird with Gaara. Naruto couldn't take it anymore. He ran after the bird. "Just where the hell do you think you're going?" he screamed at Deidara. "Naruto," Kakashi called after him, stopping a moment before he left the cave. "Naruto, and I will handle that man," he told the others before Boruto stepped forward. "I'm coming with you," he told Kakashi, looking pissed. Kakashi nodded. "The more help the better." Sakura, he turned to the medic lady. "Chio, Sarada, take the man inside. Just be careful, don't do anything rash until Team Guy gets back." "Right, you got it." Sakura nodded. Sarada clenched her fist. "He's been creeping me out ever since we walked in." Sarada, Boruto called her. "Stay calm." She looked at him and nodded. Kakashi and Boruto then moved out, joining the chase of the loose Jinchuriki running after a bird of clay in the river. None of them noticed how a certain black-haired girl who sat at the entrance saw them leaving and got up slowly, using chakra to climb up the mountain and running after them. Boruto jumped with Kakashi up to the wood post in front of the cave where Naruto stood watching. Deidara circling above them with his bird. "Bastard," Boruto hissed next to Naruto. Kakashi activated his comms. "Guy, do you read me? The enemy has split up. We're gonna need a hand." "Return immediately." He listened to the answer and then exhaled. "Looks like we're on our own. Give him back. Give Gaara back," Naruto yelled at the man above them, and Boruto knew it won't take much longer before the other team blew up. "All right." Kakashi lifted his headband, revealing his spinning Sharingan. "No time to waste here." Sarada watched as Sasori sighed. "The way I've heard it, you retired a long time ago," Sasori told Chio. "I suddenly longed to see my grandson's face again." Chio answered next to Sarada. Sakura gulped. "Hey, are you alright?" She placed her hand on Sakura's arm. Sakura shook her head. "I can tell just by looking at him. We have completely different battlefield experiences and the number of lives he's taken." Sarada glanced at Sasori and the creepy vibe she got intensified. "Even so," she said, making sure her arm warmers covered her knuckles, "we're Konoha Kunoichi. If he's our foe, we'll take him down no matter what." Sarada is right, Chio said, walking forward. "Do not fear, I am here with you. You just step back now, dears. I'll take care of the rest." She pulled out a string with kunai on it. Pulling the string out, the kunai was left gravitating up a salt blade. The kunai flew to Sasori and he lifted his tail to stop them, only for them to go around it and ripping his cloak at some places. "If you insist on interfering, I guess I have no choice." Sasori continued to rip open his cloak and reveal his puppet-like body. "How would you and those little brats there like to be part of my collection?" Sarada shuddered in disgust, but stood her ground. "No thanks, I never liked puppets." "Too bad, because soon you won't have a say in the matter. I didn't travel through time and survive the destruction of my village to become a puppet to a guy with a tail." Sarada glanced at Sakura and Chio. "It's pretty dark in here. Would they notice if I used the Sharingan?" Deciding to risk it, she quietly willed her eyes to turn red and then cloaked it by using a genjutsu to make her eyes seem normal to those who weren't paying close attention. "What you see there is not Sasori's real body," Chio told them. Sarada scanned him and realized it was true. She couldn't see the chakra flow around his body at all. "I kinda guess it wasn't his real body. But what is it then?" Sakura asked. "It's a puppet." Sarada realized she had fought puppet masters before. During her Chunin exam she got someone disqualified because he used the puppet instead of fighting her. Himself, that is correct, Chiyo said, looking at Sasori with an unreasonable expression. But then where is his real body? Sakura looked at Sasori, trying to decipher him. A puppet master has to be pulling the strings from somewhere, right? Sarada was already ahead of her, her eyes darting all over the cave, but no chakra strings were anywhere in the vicinity. His real body is inside that one, Chiyo explained, and Sarada had the sudden urge to hurl you. She couldn't even begin to fathom the number of things that were wrong with that inside. Sakura repeated after Chiyo in shock. Puppet masters aren't so good at close combat, Chiyo said dryly, detached from the conversation. Manipulating their puppet during battle leaves them wide open to attack. It was to overcome that weakness that Sasori created this puppet. Sarada had already begun thinking of ways to get the man out of his shell. It serves as his armor and his weapon. It's Sasori's specialty. Hirako, don't give it a name. Sarada was horrified now. Her nightmare star for the next couple of weeks has a name. Great, you seem to know a lot about it, Lady Chiyo, Sakura noted with suspicion. I know everything about it, Chiyo said with certainty, but do you know how I prepare a specimen for my collection? Sasori asked, his raspy voice making Sarada's skin crawl. It was like anything the man did made her dislike him even more. First I drain its blood, then I remove all of the organs and wash it inside and out, make it nice and clean, and then Sarada internally grown. There's more. Then, after I've preserved the body against decay, the final step is to fill it with hidden weapons. As the hag said, this one is called Hirako. It's only one of the specimens in my collection. Once I've added you and the girls, I'll have collected exactly 300. Sarada gritted her teeth. She really wants to punch that guy. This is my art, and this is my fist, Sarada yelled, jumping to him and hitting the ground where he was a second ago, splitting it in two. He jumped away and swatted his tail at her, making her jump back to not get hit by the poisonous end. Sarada, Sakura yelled in worry. Sarada landing a few meters away from her. I'm fine, Sarada assured her, but this guy is really pissing me off. That makes two of us girls, Sasori spat, because you make me quite angry. Sorry, not sorry. Sarada clenched her fist. Now why don't you come out of your shell and let me punch you properly? Are you really sure you want to waste your time on me? Deidara asked Kakashi sensei with the Sharingan. Boruto narrowed his eye. This man was annoying. You know, my man Sasori is probably a more dangerous opponent than I am. Boruto's mind flipped to Sarada for a moment before he dismissed the thought. Sarada can handle herself just fine. You call it art, don't you? Chiyo asked Sasori. What do you mean? Sakura asked her. Sarada also listened, not taking her eyes off Sasori. The slightest movement and her Sharingan would catch it. Long ago when he lived in Suna, he was esteemed as a master craftsman, admired for his extraordinary puppets. Chiyo sounded so detached it was hard to believe she was speaking to her grandson, but his true passion was making puppets out of the living, then adding them as specimens to his collection. He calls this monstrous conduct art. Sarada's shoulders tensed and she tried to quell the slowly growing fear in her gut. That puppet there, Hirako, he was a shinobi who lived in a nearby village. Sasori turned him to what you see now, a puppet that retains the shell of his previous physical form. It's a human puppet. A human puppet. Sakura sounded slightly terrified. Sarada knew she needed to snap out of it soon, or she'd lose her edge once Sasori got serious. And the same fate awaits you, Sasori commented. You will soon become another of my works of art. Sarada scoffed. Over my dead body? We will. That could be arranged, Sasori answered, raising his tail and waving it slightly, making Sarada regret her choice of words. This puppet's highly skilled in attack and defense, deadly at both. The first thing to do is find a way to force Sasori out of it, Chiyo told them. And how are we supposed to do that? Sakura asked her. The trouble is that the puppet is full of hidden mechanisms. Without a way to know what they are, it's difficult to anticipate exactly how to counteract them. On the other hand, Lady Chiyo, you know a lot about how that puppet functions, Sakura noted, meaning we have the advantage. So I thought, Chiyo said. That's why I was so sure I'd be able to deal with him at first, but now I realize I was wrong. What do you mean wrong? Sarada asked her, turning her head to her for a split second before turning it back to Sasori, whose tail was moving lazily like a cat's. Now that I've had a closer look at it, this one is different in many ways from the Hirako puppet. I knew. Chiyo pointed at the puppet. The Hirako I knew didn't have that shell on its back. It must have heightened its defenses, and that left arm is new to me, not to mention the hidden mechanisms we have to assume have been hidden, refined and improved as well. So what do we do? Sarada stepped back towards the two, waiting for Sasori to strike. If we are to defeat Sasori, we have to first destroy Hirako, but that will require enormous destructive power that I simply don't have. A smirk began to grow on Sarada's face. Destructive power? Hush. She glanced back at Sakura. I think we got that covered, right? Sakura looked at her and smiled, pulling on the hems of her gloves. Right, you two must somehow get close enough to use your monstrous strength to smash that puppet, Chiyo told them, but to do that you will first have to avoid every attack that his hidden weapons launch at you. You must dodge everyone perfectly. You can't risk even the slightest scratch because of the poison, right? Sakura's eyes moved to the tip of Sasori's metal tail. Exactly, as you know, the smallest cut can be fatal. Sarada remembered how Kankuro suffered while they extracted the poison from him and became more determined not to let Sasori's tail near her before you can even get to him. He will strike at you with all his hidden weapons. To survive you must understand and instantly anticipate the puppet master's moves. Don't worry about me, Sarada told them, once more grateful for her fully developed Sharingan. I got it covered. I'm not sure I'll be able to do either of those, Sakura said hesitantly. Sarada turned to her and smiled. You can, Sakura. You've studied under Lady Tsunade a lot longer than me and are an amazing medical nin. You can kick anyone's ass, Sarada chuckled. Puppet man over there won't know what hit him. Literally. Sakura stood for a moment considering Sarada's words before nodding slowly. Thank you, Sarada. Chio came behind them and whispered the plan in their ears, covering her mouth with her sleeve. Do you two understand? She asked them. Yes. Sarada tucked her hair behind her ear. Understood. Sakura nodded. Are you ready, Sarada? You know, I think that if we're about to go into a life or death battle, it's okay for us to drop the formal speech. Sarada laughed. Sakura smiled. Ready, Sarada? Right, Sakura. The two turned to look at Sasori. Fists ready now. They were going to break him into pieces. It seems they've started, Deidara said, making them all glance back at the battle sounds coming from the cave. How confident are you in those young girls and the old lady? You really think they're good enough to handle my man Sasori? How he wants to get me and Boruto out of the way so he can fight Naruto one-on-one. Kakashi realized, but this guy defeated the Kazekage, one of the 5 great Kage. I don't think Naruto on his own could handle him. Go on, sensei. Go to Sakura. Naruto told Kakashi. I'll handle this. Kakashi turned to stare at Naruto above them. Deidara smirked. Go on, sensei. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Naruto bent his knees and jumped. I'll save Gaara. Idiot, you're gonna get himself killed, Boruto yelled after Naruto. Naruto almost reached Deidara before the man flew away, making Naruto crash into the mountain in front of him. The force he put into it cresting falling debris. Deidara threw something white down at Naruto and Kakashi jumped in the air and threw a shuriken in it, intercepting it mid-air. Deidara made a quick hand seal, making it explode and sending Kakashi back, landing on the side of the mountain. Something else was sent his way, but a shuriken thrown with precision intercepted it and sent it away. Kakashi glanced for a moment and saw Boruto pulling a few other shurikens from his pouch. Deidara glanced at Boruto. Annoying pest. He threw another explosive at Boruto, but the teen just jumped away from the wooden gate he stood on a moment before the explosive hit and set the gate on fire. He landed on the mountain wall opposite to Kakashi at a more strategic height to jump onto Deidara's clay bird next to Kakashi. Naruto broke free out of the mountain, climbing out. Let go of him, he yelled at Deidara. I'll never let you have him. No need to worry, Sasori. Chio said loud enough so he'll hear. We'll end it quickly. Sakura pulled out a kunai and so did Sarada. Sakura risked a glance at Sarada and to her surprise Sarada was grinning, smirking. Even she was excited. Her energy was infectious and Sakura felt herself, despite being afraid of Sasori, starting to feel excited as well. She had a feeling this battle is going to be something else now. Sarada yelled and they jumped into action, running towards Sasori. They braced themselves as he pulled off the cloth covering his face and revealed a hole opening widely, shooting poison-laced Senbon at them. Sarada and Sakura began avoiding them quickly, Sarada moving more gracefully and with precision than her, though Sakura held her own just fine. They tried to move closer to their target, but the rain of sharp objects was making it difficult. Sakura blocked some with her kunai. Before jumping above another few, she flipped back to avoid ones directed at her head, and then blocked with her kunai again. This was getting her nowhere. Sarada was moving quickly too, but for some reason she made sure to land on the ground with more force than she needed every time she jumped, breaking it a bit. Finally the rain of Senbon stopped. Sasori having emptied his arsenal, Sarada and Sakura stood in front of him waiting for his next trick. Sakura tilted her head. When nothing happened. This can't be it, can it? Suddenly something appeared under the tattered cloak he had and shot out. It made his way swiftly between them. Now die, Sasori yelled as the thing rose into the air and started spinning around, splitting apart and sending Senbon their way. Sarada and Sakura avoided with more ease, both focusing on the number 1 skill Tsunade had taught them, evasion. Sarada jumped up, avoiding most of the spray for a minute before landing again with force and shaking the ground, rattling the trajectory of the Senbon and making them fall before they reached her. So that's what she was doing earlier, Sakura realized and smirked, jumping up and bending her knees, channeling chakra to her feet. She landed on the ground with more force and created cracks in it, the Senbon falling to her feet. It wasn't a complete solution, but it gave her another breathing space to have a head start. When the Senbon rained again, the Senbon stopped again and they stood victorious, having dodged every single one. Sakura landed on her feet and got into position with her kunai again on her left. Sarada held a few shurikens between her fingers behind them. Chio was preparing her attack. Both medics locked eyes and nodded, running towards Sasori. At the same time Sakura threw her kunai at him and Sarada threw her shuriken, but he swiped them all away with his tail, trying to stab her with the tip. Luckily Chio pulled her strings a second before the tip reached her, stopping Sakura. Using that momentum, Sarada jumped up with her fist Held back aiming at Sasori's puppet's back, he noticed her and changed the direction of his tail to hit her mid-air, only for her to be pulled away by Chiyo's strings and for Sakura to jump ahead attempting to target his head. Now Sakura, Sarada yelled as she sailed back in the air. Right, Sakura struck Boruto. Watched Naruto pull himself out of the mountain wall. I'll get Gaara, nothing can stop me, his young father yelled. You're quite an unusual Jinchuriki, aren't you? Deidara asked him. I thought you were all sullen loners who didn't care about anyone else. Boruto's dad a loner? Yeah right, to date we've destroyed 2 Jinchurikis, not including him of course, Deidara said in amusement, but nobody has ever tried to save them before, not a single friend or neighbor, not a soul. In fact, it seemed like most people were happy to finally be rid of them. Stay calm, Boruto urged himself. Remember your training, getting angry won't help with this, such a shame. Deidara didn't sound sorry at all. Very soon the same thing will happen to you. Screw staying calm. Boruto leaped from the mountain wall to Deidara's clay bird, grabbing its wings as gravity pulled him down. Deidara turned and scowled, kicking Boruto's fingers. Who said you could touch my art? Pask. Naruto broke free entirely at that moment. If Gaara's dead, you're gonna pay. Sakura crushed the shell that covered Sasori's body in half, flattening the puppet. Sarada felt pride surge in her chest at her young mother's abilities, barely hiding her smirk. Suddenly a figure covered in the rest of the cloak jumped out of the ruins and away from Sakura. Chiyo sounded smug. So you finally came out. The figure rose to its feet. Is that his real body? Sakura gasped. Come now, let me get a good look at my grandson. Chiyo coaxed him. I've waited 20 years. I want to see my grandson's face. Sarada crunched her forehead. Another headache forming. This time it hurt more than usual, making her eyes burn. She bit her lower lip so as not to distract the others, but shut her eyes tightly. This hurts a lot. With a shaky breath she deactivated her Sharingan, the pain subsiding quickly but still present behind her eyes. Why has the first move been made yet? Her superior was sounding a little bit impatient, an odd change from his usual calm and monotone voice. Not yet, she sighed, her fingers drumming on the desk surface. But it's almost complete. Do I need to remind you of how crucial it is? No sir, I am aware of the situation. Even knowing there's nothing she can do about it, she still felt like it was her fault. Her superior had this kind of effect on people. Contact me when it has been made. Of course sir, I will. The stuffed owl's crystal eyes had lost their shine as he signed off, and she breathed out shakingly. Talking to him directly was rather nerve-wracking. She glanced outside her window at the village of Konoha and tapped her finger on her desk and thought by that time tomorrow the move would have been made. Yet the future was never a certain thing. All she knew was that if Himawari Uzumaki failed to get badly hurt on her mission, the world would be doomed. The cloak-covered figure stood before them unmoving. He pulled out his hand and made a grabbing gesture, making the head of Hirako snap to attention. Sakura snapped her eyes to the puppet, startled. It can still move. The head jumped around a few times before launching in the air and turning the place where his neck would have connected to his to her and began shooting more. Sanban Chiyo made a swift movement with her wrist and pulled Sakura back, making the girl's body flips through the air to avoid the poison-laced needles aimed at her. Sakura, Sarada shouted in worry, but Sakura was luckily not hit. Well played, Sasori complimented, sounding genuinely impressed. Avoiding my attacks by using the puppet master jutsu. I should have expected no less from my granny. No wonder that even 2 mere little girls could dodge my attacks. His voice was smooth, not the gruffy sound his puppet used earlier. Sakura felt the chakra strings connected to her tighten. He knows, by the way. How clever of you to attack chakra. To Hirako's tail he added, silly me, I only noticed when the puppet's tail was brought to an abrupt halt. You did it when you threw those kunai, didn't you? Good. Chiyo smiled. Even though I used the tiniest bit of chakra to keep the string from being detected, you still figured it out. But of course. Sasori turned to them and reached for the hood covering his head. Remember who was the one who taught me how to play with puppets, who drilled the talent into me? It was you indeed, but unfortunately playtime is over. Sakura felt the strings attached to her tighten. You don't know how right you are. Sasori removed his hood and revealed his true face, leaving Sakura in shock. So do you still think this will be easy? He looked like he was only a few years older than Sakura, with messy red hair and brown eyes. Sakura's eyes darted to Chiyo, who stared at her grandson with a hybrid of shock and horror. Her mouth agape. Chiyo-sama, is that person there? Is he the real Sasori? I don't understand. Chiyo whispered, your face is exactly the same as when you left Suna. You haven't aged. Sakura's eyes darted back to Sasori. It can't be him. They told me that Sasori left Sunagakure 20 years ago. He couldn't be that young. Behind Sakura, Sarada groaned in pain. Sakura turned around to see her friend crouching down and clutching her head as if she was in pain. Her eyes shut tightly. Sarada. Sakura recognized those symptoms as a migraine. Are you alright? I'm fine, Sarada panted. Just a headache, forget about it. She rose to her feet, wobbly, one hand still holding her head. Focus on him, he's the target right now, right? Sakura turned to Sasori. Real body or not, she's going to defeat him. They're going to defeat him. Himawari hid in the woods above the river and watched the things that unfolded from the cave. She saw Sarada's chakra acting up, but chalked it up to her Using a jutsu, both her and Sakura were still there, as well as the old lady Chiyo that was with them. Focusing on what was happening in front of her, she saw her older brother Kakashi and Naruto staring up at Deidara, who had Gaara's body in the possession of his clay bird. Her body was still hurting from the earlier fight against the Akatsuki man, so she placed her hand against a tree trunk for support. It hurt to even breathe, which was making it inconvenient for her to jump down and help out. She needs to still be on her guard for any surprises the Akatsuki might have up their sleeves. She saw Kakashi look back to the cave, seemingly worried about what was going on there. She wanted to tell him that everything was being handled, but she also didn't want to let her location be known. Using her enhanced vision to scan her surroundings, Himawari located a small rock close to her. Walking to it and trying not to wince, she picked it up and looked down at the people in the river. Naruto was glaring up at Deidara, who was trying to kick Boruto off the bird. Now's my chance. She threw the tiny rock at Kakashi, hitting his back. He immediately turned his head to the place the rock came from and spotted her. His eyes widened, and she signaled for him to be quiet by placing a finger on her lips. She pointed at the cave and then gave him a thumbs up, hoping to assure him that they were fine. He gave her an almost invisible nod before turning to Deidara again. Now that she had reassured him, she turned back to her brother, who swung himself up to the bird wing and stood shakingly on it. Tch brat! Deidara kicked Boruto's stomach. Her brother lost his balance for a moment and stumbled backwards, threatening to fall down. Oni-chan! Himawari bit her lip not to say anything at the last minute. Boruto regained his balance long enough to jump down from the bird to the river, landing on the water just behind Naruto. I've had it hand over Gaara right now, Naruto shouted at Deidara. Himawari concentrated on the body of the Kazekage the bird had in its mouth. There was no chakra circulation in it, meaning that sadly the gentle Kazekage she knew since childhood was gone. Himawari looked at Naruto, her heart breaking. Her father truly cared about his friends, so for him to lose someone close to him. Suddenly Deidara turned the bird and started to fly away from the hideout. You bastard! Naruto called after him in anger, running down the river in pursuit of the bird. You're not getting away, Naruto! No, stop! Kakashi yelled in panic. Damn it! Boruto jumped after Naruto. I can take this guy. Kakashi-sensei, you stay and help Sakura-chan, Naruto yelled over his shoulder. Himawari ignored her aching body and took off to the tree branches, following the trail of the Akatsuki member with her Byakugan. She saw how Kakashi joined her brother and young father in their chase, landing on a branch. She cringed at the pain shooting up her right leg. She must have twisted her ankle with all this moving around. No time to think about it, she steeled herself and continued to move ahead. I hope Nijinizan is okay, she thought as she moved through the trees, and Sarada-chan too. Sarada tried to stabilize her breathing and balance her stance without her Sharingan activated. She felt weak, vulnerable. What's the matter, Granny? Chiyo Sasori asked the shocked old woman next to Sarada with a smile. Are you so overcome with emotion that you can't speak? Sarada clenched her fist. He was seriously getting on her nerves. While I have you, let me show you something special. Sasori took out a scroll from his sleeve and started to roll it. This piece was particularly difficult to acquire. 3. What? Sakura read from the scroll. Sasori opened the scroll completely, releasing a cloud of smoke directly into Sakura's face. Sakura Sarada tensed. She could really use her Sharingan right about now. No, that can't be. Chiyo sounded horrified. What is it? Sakura asked Chiyo worriedly. What can't be? The smoke disappeared, revealing a puppet. It's him, Chiyo whispered. It's the third Kazekage. This thing is the third Kazekage. Sarada's eyes darted to the puppet, widening. The third Kazekage. Sakura stared at the huge puppet in front of her. Sarada felt an odd sensation building up in her chest. It was the kind of feeling she got before something bad happened. What do you think? Sasori was almost enveloped by the large puppet's arm. Doesn't it just take you back, Granny? Chiyo-sama, what does this mean? Sakura asked the old woman. So this must be what happened to him. Chiyo concluded. It's been over 10 years since the third Kazekage had disappeared from the village. We looked through the entire countryside but couldn't find him. The strongest of our Kazekage simply vanished. Sarada looked closely at the puppet. He was that strong? My own grandson. It's bad enough that you involved yourself with bad people, but to betray our village by meddling with the Kazekage for the third time. The third time? Sakura asked her, and Sarada frowned. Was she talking about the fourth Kazekage? Orochimaru may have been the one who killed Gaara's father, the fourth Kazekage, but Sasori was complicit from the beginning, and now he's taken Gaara and the third Kazekage too. Orochimaru. Sarada thought about the odd scientist she knew from her time. He killed the Kazekage. Wait a second, I wasn't involved in killing the fourth Kazekage. That was all the doing of one of my agents. Sasori corrected her. If that's the case, it's the same as if you did it with your own hands. Chiyo yelled at him. Do you claim you weren't involved at all? Sarada realized that Chiyo has an enormous amount of pride and love for her village. That was the reason she was acting as if Sasori has crossed a line greater than treason. It's true, Orochimaru and the Akatsuki have some history. We've done some work together. Sarada saw Sakura's back tense at the mention of the snake Sannin. So you were her young mother? Spoke her tone so cold it sent shivers down Sarada's spine. If you worked with Orochimaru then you know all about him and the things that he's done. Sarada didn't like where the conversation was headed, which means you have all the answers I've been looking for. Sasori smirked, not impressed. I'd love to stay and chat, but unfortunately I really must eliminate all of you and then go and capture the Jinchuriki. I do hate to keep people waiting. Sadly, there's not time to your little quiz. He leaned backwards. Well then shall we begin? And with a slight movement of his wrist, all hell broke loose. Sakura prepared herself for the puppet, not realizing how quick it is. Chio pulled her backwards, sending her flying through the air. Sarada leaped forward, aiming her fist at the puppet's side. Unfortunately, the arm of the puppet was filled with poison-laced blades, forcing Chio to pull her back as well. The puppet then swung its arm at Sakura, but Chio blocked it with Hiriko's tail. However, the tail broke under the strength of the blades. Sasori huffed, slick move, old lady. He moved his hand, but how are you going to block this one? The third Kazekage puppet hand moved forward and started to unfold itself, revealing summoning jutsus on each part. No, Chio gasped and tried to move, but it was too late. Dozens of wooden hands made their way out of the arm and towards Sakura, moving at uncanny speed. Sakura stood frozen as she watched that unhuman contraption reaching for her from above, about to crush her. Shnro Sarada appeared before her and thrust her fist forward. The shockwave of the blow crushed the hands into tiny wooden pieces, scattering them around the cave. Sakura stared at Sarada, who was panting, her back turned to her. From this close, Sakura could feel the anger radiating from her fellow teammate. Sarada was fuming, and at that moment Sakura decided that she never wanted to be the object of the girl's anger. Are you alright, Sakura? Sarada asked her without moving her eyes off Sasori. Why, yeah, I think so. The feeling in her arms returned, and she opened and closed her glove-covered fist in order to relax. That was a close one. Girls, be careful. Chio's sudden shout caused them to freeze. A few hands that survived Sarada's blow made their way to them, not looking too friendly. Chio moved them away, both of them dragged backwards in midair. The hands opened, revealing a tube. Sakura had a second to realize what was going on before the poison gas flew out of the tube straight into her face. It's okay, I can dodge this. Sakura's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden headache. It was so intense she couldn't breathe, let alone dodge the poison. No, not now, I need to. She was walking on a bridge at sunset, shopping bags in her hands. In front of her, two men were having an argument. The white-haired one pointed at her, though she couldn't see his face. The other man, a black-haired one, turned to her. Sakura, he said. Sakura's breath hitched again. It was Sakura. Bobump, there are moments in your life that you'll forever remember. Bobump. Even if you try to forget, they will always be engraved in your mind. Bobump, like the time you almost died. Bobump, or the time you watched your mother almost die. Babump. Sarada's body moved before she could even comprehend what was happening. Guided by instinct alone, with every bit of chakra left in her, she used the force of her blow to throw Sakura away. She knew what she was doing was stupid, impulsive, and short-sighted, and would most likely get her killed. She didn't care. Closing her eyes, she felt the cloud of poison envelope her. In Sakura's stead, his fingers twitched and he felt like he needed to grab something. Nothing came to mind as he was just leaning against a boulder. All of his body got goosebumps, the hair on his neck standing like he was zapped with electricity. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. He swallowed hard, his throat almost not opening. It felt as if someone has ripped a hole in his stomach, creating a dark pit. He heard his heartbeat in his ears. Ba bump, ba bump, ba bump. What's going on? He didn't know that somewhere else at that very moment something had happened. He had no idea what was wrong, why he felt like someone had just stepped on his grave, or so the stories suggest happens when you get a chill like this. And he didn't care for now, at least, ignoring his instincts to run into the unknown and look for the source of his uneasiness. He instead grabbed the sheath tied to his waist and drew his katana. Time to get back to training.